In this video, we're going to go ahead and put a couple pieces of the puzzle together that we've talked about in the other videos. We're going to use a virtual copy to manipulate our image. We're going to create that trendy, high contrast look to our image. From there, what we're going to do is add a vignette to our image, and then we're going to go ahead and save all of that as a preset so that we can apply that preset to any image that we want to apply that look to. Okay, so right here I have my beautiful toffee image, and what I want to do is create a virtual copy. So under Photo, create virtual copy, and you won't see any change because all it does was duplicates the settings and it gives it another copy here. You can see it says copy 4. This happens to be all these settings adjusted, so I'm going to go ahead and reset the tones and everything. Minimal change, but you don't have to do that, but that's basically what I did here, is to reset everything back to the 0 values. So for this high contrast look, what we're going to do is we're going to shift the contrast to 100%. We are going to take the highlights and we're going to bring them all the way down to negative. So we don't want to go plus, we want to go negative. Okay. And then on the shadow side, we're going to bring those all the way up to 100%. So basically, that's the starting point for this effect. We're getting a higher contrast. The highlights are kind of being pushed away, and the shadows are being increased. So from here, what we can do is to fine-tune things. We can play with the exposure. So if it's pushed up a little too bright, it seems a little overexposed, we'll bring the exposure down a little bit, just a couple little notches, 0.3 stops. And if we needed to, we can decrease the black values to kind of give it a little bit more punch. So here, let's go to 18, and I'm going to re-up my exposure to 0.2. Okay, so basically what we've done is, let's do a little before and after action here. So this is our before on the left-hand side, again using the Y key as our shortcut. You can see the difference. We've kind of made the colors a little bit more saturated here, just by increasing the contrast and playing with those other settings. And we kind of made things pop just a little bit more. You know, it's not completely unnatural looking, but it's definitely different. Let's go to 2 to 1 on this one little section here. So you can see the difference here between these edges. We've really kind of punched things up a bit. If you needed to, you can play with the clarity as well. Bringing that all the way up to 100% really gives the effect some oomph. And in that case, if that you did that, you might want to maybe not lower the exposure as much. Okay, so again, play with these settings depending on what the effect that you're looking for. Cool. So basically, that's as simple as that. Changing those values, we're increasing contrast, decreasing highlights, and increasing shadows to give it really that punchy kind of higher contrast look. Let's go ahead and add a vignette to our image. So vignettes are basically just, you've probably seen it if you don't know the term, the edges are either much lighter than the image or much darker than the image. The ones we typically see are the edges are darker. So let's scroll down to Effect, and this is called post-cropping vignetting, which means it doesn't matter how you crop your image, the vignette will be applied the same way regardless of the cropping. Okay, so it'll look the same on each edges. So in other words, if we go here and I move this to the left, notice I'm going to overdo it so you can see it. And then here, if we go the other direction, we push it a little higher. Okay, so let's lower that, see what that does. And then this setting here is, what do you want to see? Is it the brightness? Do you want to shift the color a little bit? Or do you want to have the kind of a painted overlay, almost like it's obliterating the background? Notice any of that shadow detail kind of went away. Okay, I'm going to keep it at highlight priority, so anything I've got going on down here still stays intact. And so, again, I don't want to look too like manipulated, but it's kind of nice a little bit to have some vignetting to draw the viewer into the center of the image. Okay, grain is if you wanted to add some grain to it. So actually, it applies to the whole image, not necessarily where the vignette is, but it's just another effect. We don't want to do that in this case, so I'm going to leave it at 0. But right now we have a nice vignette around here, draws the viewer in, and we've applied that kind of interesting high contrast effect. Okay, remember we made a virtual copy. So here, if I go back to the original, this is what the original looks like. And this is what the virtual copy looks like. So we can see if we like that effect. Let's say we do. For sake of argument, let's say we do. Let's go to save this preset. So under the presets panel here on the left-hand side, I don't have to open it, but I can. We can see what our presets currently are. Now these are the default presets that came with Lightroom. And down here we have user presets. Those are the ones you create, and that's where they'll be stored. So here, if I say, click on this and say create preset, I can call it high contrast. Oops, contrast. This, I'm going to give it an 01, just in case I want to play around with this. You know, maybe you want to have multiple high contrast settings. Let me just say 01. What the heck? Let's check all. So these are all the items that you can actually create a preset for. Tone curve, all that good stuff. Transforming, vignetting, calibration, all that stuff. If you check all and you haven't done anything, no harm, no foul. You know, if you made changes to certain things that would, you know, be applied here, you know, like split toning, graduated filters, we didn't really add any of those, but you know what, it's not going to hurt anything. So once I've made my selection, you know, I click create, and now it's high contrast over here. So let's say I went in back to my original here, and let's make a virtual copy again. Photo, virtual copy. Okay, so now here's our virtual copy. It looks just like the original. Okay, what I'm going to do is click on high contrast. Remember, you can click on the preset to see what it does. Or, I'm sorry, you roll over the preset to see what it does, and it looks like that, and you say, okay, I want that. Now this virtual copy looks like the previous one because they're identical. They have the same settings applied. How does that work on a person? Haha. There we go. Let's see how this works. So here she is. I'm going to make another virtual copy just so I don't mess things up, or I want to just go ahead and try something new. Click on high contrast here. Wow, that definitely did something different. So here, click on that, and now we have kind of a really stylized version of an image we had before. Actually, it's kind of interesting. And so any of the things that we did earlier, though, unfortunately, seem to be obliterated. You know, so it's not going to add to the thing. It's going to actually remove that effect. Remember, we did the radial gradient and so on in a previous video. So in this one, it looks like it took some of that stuff away, the adjustment brush and so on. Oh, nope, I'm wrong. The adjustment brush and everything is still intact. So disregard that. It still keeps everything intact, but adds to it. Okay. So again, saving it as a preset and going in and applying this to whatever image you want, you can see the effect. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So you can really get some stylized looks to your image, save those as presets, and recall them as you need them. So again, virtual copies, high contrast effect, saving it as a profile, and using vignettes to kind of draw the viewer into your image here, high contrast. Bam. All right, carry on.